Lindsay said, when you pass away, does your superannuation value stay the same as it was the day you died, or does it keep trading until it's paid out through the person's will? How long is it considered a reasonable time for the superannuation to be let go by the super fund to be allowed to be actioned by the person's will? Thanks in advance. Have a great day. Thanks, Lindsay. He's a regular in the Facebook group. What do you take from this?
Don't know.
Okay, so
7 days.
yeah, so well, that's cute. So just on this, when you die, your superannuation does not form part of your estate. It's not an estate asset. It's a trust that is separate to your wealth. So
Yes.
that's number one. Number two, because that money is on trust, there is a trustee, and that trustee could be insert major super fund name here. So they manage the money on behalf of you as a trustee. Now, you can tell the trustee that, hey, if I die, please pay this superannuation to my children or to my spouse, or
Percentage-wise.
yeah. Or in the case of someone like me, I don't have kids, I've got no superannuation dependents or superannuation tax dependents. I've told my superannuation documents, I've got a superannuation fund, self-managed one, but there's a nomination that money goes into the estate and to be governed by my will.
Yep.
When I didn't have the self-managed super fund, I had a binding nomination that if I die, send the money to my personal legal representative, which is AKA the executor of my will, to then distribute via the will.
So what's most commonly done? Can it be neglected and forgotten about in the event?
Yeah, well, so most people will have a nomination on their superannuation to their spouse or their kids.
Regardless of whether they've got a will or not?
Yeah, because you don't need a will to have a superannuation nomination. So the question is, in the event of you dying, what does the super fund do? How long have they got to take? So what they first do, once they're notified of a member's death, they will first look at, okay, is there a valid beneficiary nomination here?
Yeah.
So if, I died and I had a wife and it said send all money to wife, they would literally get the wheels in motion to pay that out. So the question here, does it stay invested? Most of the funds that I've seen upon notification of a member's death will stay invested. There could be some funds this is why if you are interested in this, have a look, call your own super fund and ask them what their process is. Some funds may, upon notification of death of a member, some trustees may uninvest that money or de-invest it or whatever it is, move it to cash. The ones that I've seen, it stays invested. And then the day it gets transferred out, that's the day that you get. If the market's gone to the moon, there's going to be more money for the estate or the beneficiaries. If it's tanked, there'll be less money.
But essentially, at the end of the day, the superannuation funds needs to go to the beneficiary or the nominee. It can't stay in its original state.
But basically what happens, if you have a superannuation fund and you die and there isn't a listed beneficiary, the trustee has discretion of where they pay that.
Yeah.
And this is where things can get nasty and crazy really fast.
Yeah.
I was helping a client who died and they had their superannuation like a industry super fund. I think it was CBUS. Not that that means anything. I just remember weird details. They had some insurance in there, no nomination of beneficiary. And it literally took, and this is the crazy part of it, like it took them over 6 months to, actually, once we got all the documents to them, pay the death claim. And there's a whole heap of stuff in the media at the moment with some of these bigger super funds dropping the ball on death benefits. It's been going on for years. But basically what would happen is the spouse may send a notice to the super fund, hey, my partner's died. There's no nomination of beneficiary. They will start to gather information. Can you tell us, are there Is there a will? They've got discretion to gather whatever information. So in the case that I had, we had to have a stat deck from the spouse, and we also put a stat deck from the 2 adult kids to say, basically, we're happy for mum to get the money. There's no claim here. And then that then goes to a trustee meeting and they look at all the stuff. And I think that's why if you want control, you've got to make sure that you've got a beneficiary nomination in place.
So you mentioned 6 months. I mentioned 7 days. Are we somewhere in between that? Is it what's generally a realistic time frame?
Look, at the end of the day, if someone died tomorrow, there's the practicals of life. You might not get around to letting the super fund know for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. But is it, like, from a superannuation's point of view, they're losing business.
Yeah, but it's not huge.
But is it like I'm with Westpac, I'm going to ANZ, Westpac, you need to release the funds?
No, so with the transfers, now that it's all like electronic, the funds have 3 days or whatever to transfer the roll of money out. So look, all I would say is it's hard to say how long does it take because it has got everything to do with the trustee of the individual fund. And if there is no nomination, they could get notified tomorrow. They could receive all these, a stat deck to say, I'm the surviving spouse, there's no other claim. What if someone came out of the woodwork and said, oh, I'm actually a half-brother and I deserve this?
Yeah.
So even if you had the best case scenario and you sent those documents in, it was all good or legit, the trustee might only do monthly or 6 weekly meetings.
Yeah.
So you could have got in at the wrong time. So, we've got to wait a month till there's a meeting of the trustee committee and stuff like that. So
be prepared for a journey.
I just want to get across that to have control when you die within relation to your super, have a binding beneficiary. And I will just caution, there was a sad case, and I've talked about it on the podcast before. A guy died, he was in his 30s, 2 young kids, and I knew of them in my broader networks, left the wife, 2 young kids in the house. He thought he was doing the right thing and put the 2 kids who were like under 8 years old, 50-50 as the binding nomination.
Right.
Now, this gets really annoying because what if they had insurance in that same fund? So they could have had the everyday industry super fund with $200,000 balance. The guy could have had $1 million of death cover.
Yeah.
But the nomination at a fund level will cover the insurance and the actual invested amount, the super. He died, house with a mortgage and young kids, 50-50, call it $1 million or whatever it was with insurance and the account balance, left to the 2 kids. How annoying. Awesome that he wanted to protect, but now mum's left with a mortgage, part-time job.
Yeah.
Now, there could be ways that they could cook it and be like, we're going to use this money, pay the mortgage off, we'll transfer the house so it's at the benefit of the kids, and then lifetime tenancy if mum ever, but what a mess.
Yeah. 8-year-olds are deciding the future.
Well, yeah, and this is it would probably go on a nominal trust and all that stuff, but it effectively has to be paid out of the super fund. There's probably rules deep in the CIS Act that, you got to do this, an intention within a certain amount of time, but yeah, that's all I wanted to get across today, to have control.